Are you frustrated by the liberal bent in the news? Tune in to Crosstalk each weekday live at 2 p.m., repeated at 8 p.m. Central Time here on VCY America, your Christian information station.
You're listening to VCY America Worldwide, KBCX Gregory, and WVIW Bridgeport.
History was made on today's date. Stay tuned for an American Minute with Bill Federer.
On this date, March 20th, 1727, Sir Isaac Newton, one of the world's greatest scientists, died. With his mother widowed twice, he was raised by his grandmother before being sent off to grammar school and later Cambridge. He discovered calculus, the laws of gravity, and built the first reflecting telescope. Using a prism, Newton demonstrated how a beam of sunlight contained all the colors of the rainbow. Regarding the Bible, Isaac Newton wrote, "The system of revealed truth which this book contains is like that of the universe, concealed from common observation, yet the centuries have established its divine origin."
This has been an American Minute with Bill Federer. For a free transcript, call American Minute at 1-888-USA-WORD.
VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
Here we are on this Friday, March the 20th, 2026, this first calendar day of springtime, officially arriving earlier today, 10:46 in the east, at of course 9:46 a.m. Central Time, and we officially welcome the new season. And looking forward to warmer temperatures and already enjoying the sounds of the birds singing once again and all that we enjoy with springtime. And as I get older, I truly try to enjoy the beauty of each season, because each season does come with its beauties, its beautiful things. It also comes with its challenges. And so if you've been challenged, as many have, through the winter season, we're, of course, excited now that spring is here. Now, in Wisconsin, where we are at headquarters at VCY, we know that we could still have some interesting spring weather in the form of snow and such, even watching much of that melting here today. But happy springtime where you are. In for Jim Schneider today, Dalton Windsor, Mike Side, and we'll get to plenty of the stories that Sister Sandy has compiled for us today. There is a stack that I know we will not be able to attain here inside of just the allotted time. We have Molly at the switchboard, Brother Dennis at VCY Master Control, so we are ready to go. And really one of the news stories hitting all of social media today is, the passing of Chuck Norris, the martial arts artist and, of course, actor, the iconic actor of Chuck Norris, passing away, I'm told, on the 19th, reading this. And so, of course, it hit the news cycles earlier today, 86 years old. And if you're on social media at all, these past many years, really, it's been a lot of fun for not only Chuck Norris fans, but also Chuck Norris himself, because he's been the subject of many a meme online, maybe a short telling, a short story or something like that. And whom of us has not heard something like this one that says, when Chuck Norris was born, he drove his mom home from the hospital. These short little stories, just, saying, how strong he was. Another one says, when Chuck Norris slices onions, the onions cry. Chuck Norris counted to infinity twice. Or how about this one? When the boogeyman goes to sleep at night, he checks his closet for Chuck Norris. So there were many of those things that, would make you smile, make you laugh. I have heard, over interviews and such in years past of Chuck Norris talking about his Christian faith and, loving God and loving his family, trusting God. And so, anyway, still, you hate to see it as far as the loss that we definitely feel here when a brother or sister goes home, but then also someone just so beloved and who loved America, loved our country. And so we, of course, lift up the Chuck Norris family in prayer as they would try to, find their new normal. Well, much to get to here, and leading the stack of news stories, this one from the Free Beacon, the United States military. Well, we have much to be praying about, do we not? The U.S. military has now sunk more than 120 Iranian naval vessels during Operation Epic Fury. Earlier this week, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth said this.
And to borrow a page from Admiral Ernest King in World War II, we've decided to share the ocean with Iran. We've given them the bottom half. We've damaged or sunk over 120 of their Navy ships, with battle damage assessments pending for many more. See, oftentimes we have to wait a few days on battle damage assessment to get the real number. Their surface fleet is no longer a factor. Their submarines, they once had 11, are gone. Their military ports are crippled.
That is Pete Hegseth, U.S. Secretary of War. The Islamic Republic had a submarine force of about 28 to 30 vessels before Operation Epic Fury began. And Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, speaking alongside Hegseth this week, saying that at least 44 Iranian mine-laying vessels are out of commission, significantly diminishing Tehran's ability to choke the critical Strait of Hormuz shipping lane. The U.S. military dropped 5,000-pound penetrator weapons onto the underground bunkers there, preventing the regime from accessing weapons in its reserves. PJ Media saying that after days of delay, complaint, and indecision, 6 nations have now committed to helping the U.S. patrol the Strait of Hormuz. The strait that we speak of here, a major source of petroleum products for Europe and Asia, and is critical to Europe's energy security. Besides Japan, the countries that are now stating their readiness to assist in patrolling the Strait of Hormuz are Great Britain, Italy, France, Germany, and the Netherlands. This says, we condemn in the strongest terms recent attacks by Iran on unarmed commercial vessels in the Gulf, attacks on civilian infrastructure, including oil and gas installations, and the de facto closure of the Strait of Hormuz by Iranian forces. This from the countries that were explained in this joint statement. The statement said, we express our deep concern about the escalating conflict. We call on Iran to cease immediately its threats, laying of mines, drone and missile attacks, and other attempts to block the strait to commercial shipping, and to comply with UN Security Council Resolution 2817. Freedom of navigation is a fundamental principle of international law, including under the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea. From the Epoch Times, the USS Boxer Amphibious Ready Group and the 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit, currently based out of San Diego, California, all set to sail across the Indo-Pacific region to reach the waters of the Middle East. This from a U.S. military source that is familiar with the matter. A combined ARG and MEU would consist of around 5,000 sailors and Marines. These additional troops would join around 50,000 U.S. troops already deployed to the Middle East as joint U.S. and Israeli military operations against Iran continue. News of this forced deployment comes just days after the Department of War ordered the USS Tripoli, ARG, and its attached 31st MEU, again, MEU, Marine Expeditionary Unit, all to relocate from the waters near Japan to the Middle East. In addition to the USS Boxer, the amphibious dock landing ship USS Comstock, and the amphibious transport dock ship USS Portland have been observed operating in recent pre-deployment training exercises with the 11th MEU components. Thus far, no U.S. ground troops have entered combat with Iranian forces. Of course, that's been much of the talk, especially the past week or so, since we've already gone now over 3 weeks, and the folks saying, well, are we going to have to, put what they love to say, boots on the ground, and so as of yet, as just reported, no U.S. ground troops have entered combat with Iranian forces. From Newsmax, Ali Larijani. Have grace with me on some of these names. Iran's top national security official who threatened President Donald Trump's life after the U.S.-Israeli strikes began has been killed. Larijani, who served as Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, was killed alongside other senior regime figures. Iran's, just the news, Iran's leadership continues to be killed off by the conflict. Iranian Minister of Intelligence Emil Khatib, the latest casualty. Khatib had been killed in an airstrike. Khatib's death comes a day after the country's top security official that we just told you about, Ali Larijani, and then also Gholam Soleimani, the head of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard's volunteer force, were killed in an Israeli raid. The Times of Israel.com reporting the spokesperson for Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Ali Naini, has been killed in strikes launched by the U.S. and Israel. The Tasnim news agency reports that Naini was martyred. That's the quote. Naini was quoted earlier in the day rebuffing a claim from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that Iran's missile production had been rendered inoperable. Breitbart reporting a U.S. Air Force F-35 fighter jet was forced to make an emergency landing at a U.S. air base in the Middle East after flying a combat mission over Iran. This from a spokesman from U.S. Central Command yesterday, Thursday. This says, we are aware of reports of the emergency landing, adding the aircraft landed safely and the pilot is in stable condition. The incident is under investigation. Iran's Revolutionary Guard paramilitary moved to claim the incident as a shoot-down, asserting the likelihood of its crash is very high, and publishing an infrared video clip showing an aircraft being struck mid-flight. The footage appears to show a missile intercepting the aircraft and exploding. After the blast, 3 frames of footage showing the aircraft apparently intact are shown before the video ends. Friends, the days in which we are living now, like never before, seeing is not, what is the saying? Seeing is believing. You got to question just about everything you see these days. Of course, with AI and all of the technologies that can simply just be made up, simply bogus, and you watch it and you say that is real, and then you come to find out that it's not. So we do have to truly it's such a deceptive time. We are coming up on our first break here. Another one from SRN News quickly. Iran threatened to target recreational and tourist sites worldwide and is insisting that it is still building missiles. This show of defiance today came nearly 3 weeks into this war, and a slew of Tehran's top leaders, as we've already reported this quarter hour, have been killed. Also suffering great damage is the weapons and energy industries that they have going there in Iran. despite many of the things that they are saying, hasn't happened. A couple of more stories that we need to cover on the current war. And we'll get to that on the other side. You're listening to News Roundup and Comments on this Friday, the first day of spring, March 20. Happy springtime. Stay with us.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, scientist with the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, how can some lizards walk and even hang upside down on very smooth surfaces?
Chris, this is an amazing feat. Consider the gecko, which can stick to almost any surface, even a polished pane of glass. It attaches itself by tiny hairs on its feet, which are so tiny they're packed at about 500 per square inch. Each hair exerts a tiny chemical force which is attracted to the glass surface, and together they support the weight of the lizard. By curling and uncurling the toes, the lizards can break this bond and move on and take another step. Often engineers notice an ability in animals and attempt to mimic it in engineering design. And that's what they're trying to do in this case. Maybe by modeling the gecko lizard, we can even have Spider-Man clinging to smooth surfaces. Such things are possible if you go back to Genesis for your starting point.
Thanks for joining us for Back to Genesis.
I'm glad to have you with us. A couple of more stories here as we would continue covering stories, out of Iran. And this one from the Washington Times. An Israeli-led airstrike on Iran's South Pars gas field triggered a massive Iranian counterattack yesterday, Thursday, with Tehran targeting energy infrastructure across the Gulf with scores of ballistic missiles and drones. And friends, as we hear a headline like this, where does your mind going? What do we always know is soon to be happening here where we are when we hear about this type of stuff going on? We think of oil prices. We're going to get to that story in just a minute. Officials in Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates and Kuwait all reporting downing Iranian drones or missiles early Thursday. Qatar's Ras Laffan industrial city, which produces at least 20% of the world's liquid natural gas supply, sustained, quote, extensive damage, end of quote, from an Iranian attack. Iranian attacks also on Saudi Arabia's Aramco Exxon Samref refinery located near the western city of Yanbu. Emirati defense officials said they intercepted 13 ballistic missiles and 27 drones in overnight attacks on the UAE energy sites. The Epoch Times also reporting that European gas prices surged on March the 19th, jumping as much as 40% before powering gains after the strikes on Iran's giant South Pars gas field. Dutch TTF natural gas futures, considered the European benchmark, later eased back from their highs to around 20% on the day after. Newsmax, global energy markets bracing for a potentially historic price surge as Saudi officials warned that crude oil could spike to $180 per barrel or higher if ongoing supply disruptions tied to the Iran conflict are not resolved by late April. At $180 a barrel, what do you think we would be paying here in the States? At $180 a barrel, Americans would have to pay more than $5 a gallon? Higher. More than $6 a gallon? Higher. More than $7 a gallon at $180 a barrel. That's according to the estimates. More than $7 a gallon is where Americans could be headed should this continue into, next month and late next month, April. Saudi Arabia standing to benefit from higher oil revenues. Officials are increasingly alarmed at the broader economic consequences consequences such as this spike that could trigger, including demand destruction and global recession. Analysts note that prices have climbed roughly 50% since hostilities escalated in late February. A key driver of the surge is the effective shutdown of shipping through the Strait of Hormuz that we've already talked about. That, of course, one of the world's most critical oil choke points. Before the conflict, Saudi Arabia alone exported as much as 6 million barrels per day through the strait. Speaking of oil prices, desperate to rein in oil prices, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent telling Fox Business his department may soon lift sanctions on about 140 million barrels of Iranian oil that it's already in transit. Also, he's floating another release from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve as one of lots of levers, he says, that they can pull. Lots of levers that officials can pull, according to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. We'll follow that one for you. Newsmax, federal authorities have moved to seize a network of internet domains allegedly tied to an Iran-linked hacking operation accused of targeting government systems, private individuals, and critical infrastructure, all according to a newly unsealed affidavit filed in U.S. District Court in Maryland. The FBI affidavit identifies 4 domains, including Justice 4 and Handala Hack, that investigators say were used by a coordinated cyber group operating under multiple aliases, including Homeland Justice, Handala Hack, and Karma Below. Authorities allege these sites were instrumental in cyber intrusions, data theft, and the public release of sensitive personal information. According to the filing, the activity is linked to actors affiliated with Iran's Ministry of Intelligence and Security. From JNS, shrapnel from an Iranian missile intercepted by the IDF, Israeli Defense Force, struck Israel's largest oil refinery in Haifa Bay yesterday, Thursday, causing damage to the facility and triggering power outages in the surrounding area. The Israel Fire and Rescue Services have confirmed all of this. Energy and Infrastructure Minister Eli Cohen saying that the damage to the electricity network in northern Israel was limited, saying that teams are already working in the field and have restored electricity to most of those disconnected areas. Breitbart saying the government of Qatar announced on Wednesday that it had given all Iranian diplomats in the country 24 hours to leave, declaring them personas non grata after the Iranian terrorist regime bombed one of Qatar's most lucrative energy facilities. This decision comes in response to repeated Iranian targeting and the blatant aggression against the state of Qatar. It violated its sovereignty and security in a flagrant breach of the principles of international law. United Nations Security Council Resolution number 2817 and the principles of good neighborliness. Doha added that further attacks will be met with additional measures by the state of Qatar. We'll shift gears here just a little bit. We talk about, the loss of infrastructure. We talk about the loss of security, on the internet and such. But there has been some tragic loss of life this week. Daily Caller reporting the Islamic Republic of Iran hung 3 men that it accused of murder and waging war against God. Of these 3 men, a 19-year-old member of Iran's national wrestling team. Back in December 2025, protests did erupt. It grew to millions in the streets before the demonstrations were stopped by the regime in February. Now, listen to this. They reported 30,000 or more of the protesters were killed by Iranian security forces. And you remember here, we reported on these things back in January and February of this year. They reported over 30,000 protesters that were killed by Iranian security forces. Thousands more were arrested en masse in January and February, including the 3 we're speaking of who were just executed this week. Young men. And one of those, Salah Mohammadi, Reuters reports the regime accused the men of murdering 2 police officers using knives and swords during the protest. That, of course, was the accusation from the regime. And this one wrestler that we speak of here, Salah Mohammadi, a 19-year-old athlete. Olympic gold medalist Brandon Slay has condemned the act, expressing heartbreak and offering prayers. This from Brandon Slay, a Olympic gold medalist. He says, "My prayers are with Mohammadi's family and all who are suffering. In the face of such oppression, I hold to the hope of the gospel of Jesus Christ. It is the only light that overcomes darkness and only truth that proclaims justice and mercy will one day prevail." And if you have been, online, social media, it's just, all kinds of things coming out on that, showing pictures of the young man, and I know that there's more of those stories out there, but that, of course, is one that we did, in fact, grab for you today. Newsmax also saying, shifting gears again here with President Donald Trump, and looking toward Cuba, vowing Monday that the U.S. may take Cuba as the communist island plunged into darkness under a total power blackout linked to a crippling oil embargo that was imposed by Washington. Donald Trump saying, all my life I've been hearing about the U.S. and Cuba. When will the U.S. do it? I do believe I'll be, I'm quoting Donald Trump here, I do believe I'll be having the honor of taking Cuba. Whether I free it, take it, think I could do anything I want with it, you want to know the truth, they're a very weakened nation right now. Again, the blackout resulting from a complete shutdown of the national grid there. And this, of course, is not the first time that President Trump has been talking about Cuba and what the needs there are. China actually helping Cuba, racing to capture renewable solar energy as the U.S. did impose their oil blockade on the Caribbean island. And China is flexing its dominance in renewable energy using offers of equipment, expertise, and financing as geopolitical levers. Another big story from this past week, you've been hearing the name Joe Kent, former director of the National Counterterrorism Center. With the departure of Joe Kent, according to Western Journal, meaning one less leaker in Washington. That's according to multiple reports reported by the Western Journal. Joe Kent saying, I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, and it is clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. Well, Representative Don Bacon, a Republican from Nebraska, was quick to celebrate, saying, good riddance. Speaking about Joe Kent, saying, good riddance. Iran has murdered more than 1,000 Americans. Media reporting that Kent had been leaking information and was already marginalized in the Trump administration. A senior administration official told Fox that Joe Kent was a known leaker, and he was cut out of POTUS intelligence briefings months ago. that he has not been part of any Iran planning discussions or briefings at all. Great time to take this short break. We will come back, of course. And what about the Senate? Have they passed anything? Have they been doing anything? Oh yeah. Chuck Schumer has a few things to say. Wonder if he regrets what he said. We'll get there. Stay with us.
Christian film writer, director, and producer Rich Cristiano has released 4 powerful films that motivate, encourage, and challenge believers. These also share an evangelistic message to the lost. VCY is offering the Cristiano 4-pack DVD set. The set includes Unidentified, which follows reporters as they cover the UFO issue only to be confronted by their eternal destiny. The Secrets of Jonathan Sperry, demonstrating the powerful impact a senior citizen has on young boys to reach others with the gospel. Play the Flute, which follows a youth leader who is put in charge of a teen group that is filled with spiritual apathy and finds himself in an uphill battle. And then A Matter of Faith, showing a Christian girl whose faith is challenged as she leaves for college. This 4-pack Cristiano set is available for $35 when you call 1-800-729-9829.
Back on Crosstalk on the VCY America Radio Network, online at vcy.org. Another great week of programming here on Crosstalk. We encourage you to, of course, check out the, as we mentioned, the website vcy.org or crosstalkamerica.com. Crosstalkamerica.com. You can join us on Saturdays if you are part of the VCY network, and, of course, catch a best of the week. But Fridays always brings the news roundup and comment as we are in here today. Well, I mentioned before the break about Chuck Schumer, and we need to shift gears again and talk about the Senate. They voted 51-48 Tuesday to begin the debate on the Save America Act, a Republican-backed bill that would require proof of U.S. citizenship to register to vote and photo identification to cast a ballot. The procedural vote fell largely up along the party lines, with Alaska Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski opposing the measure and North Carolina Senator Tom Tillis not even voting. The move setting the stage for what is expected to be a prolonged and contentious debate on the Senate floor. The move sets the stage for what is expected to be a prolonged and contentious debate on the Senate floor. There's so much to debate about: why someone would require proof of U.S. citizenship to register to vote and a photo ID to cast a ballot. Apparently, we just can't come to an agreement on this. President Trump has made the legislation top priority, warning that he may withhold support from Republican lawmakers who oppose it, and even threaten to block other legislation until the bill is passed. So you have people on both sides of the aisle who apparently don't care who's voting, really, or they would, of course, not admit to that, but that it's racist to do these kind of things, to require proof of U.S. citizenship, to register to vote, to show your photo, to cast in order to cast a ballot. So in trying to downplay its seriousness and its scope, Senator Chuck Schumer of New York, also Senator Raphael Warnock of Georgia, acknowledging the existence of a problem they've argued is immaterial, that illegal immigrants may be able to unlawfully participate in federal elections. Now, was this just a gaffe? Was this? Let's just let Chuck Schumer tell us for himself.
The core of the bill is handing the voter rolls over to DHS, putting them through an algorithm designed by Moj and Musk that supposedly knocks out illegal immigrants from voting. But the evidence is almost no illegal immigrants vote.
The evidence is that almost no illegal aliens vote. Both Schumer and also Warnock's comments really made the case for the very bill they're trying to kill. Both Democrats arguing against the passage of the Save America Act. Again, this legislation that would impose citizenship requirements for voter registration. In other words, if you want to register to vote, you need to be a U.S. citizen. Who'd have thought? Who'd have thought? Save America Act, legislation that would impose citizenship requirements for voter registration. Just the News saying that Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky has said that the bill he co-sponsored, the SAVE Act, now the Save America Act, may have a road to passage, but will need some nips and tucks to even get full Republican support. Rand Paul said, "We have to get all of the Republicans first. I think Republicans are fairly unified on the citizenship part. I think the prohibition of blanket mail-in is as important as citizenship, but if we can't get a coalition on that, you sometimes have to narrow your bill. So I'm not opposed to narrowing the bill if it means we can get it passed. You might be able to get all 53 Republicans and 1 or 2 Democrats," Rand Paul. The bill primarily focusing on election integrity, but also contains proposed additions that would ban transgender minors from receiving sex change surgeries and prohibit biological males from competing in women's sports. It also contains a provision that would prohibit widespread absentee ballots. So, through this article just alone, we get to go a little deeper into what the Save America Act is. Yes, it is basically what we've been telling you, what it's been reported as, but then in addition to that, there are the proposed additions to the bill, and that would keep other people from going ahead and saying, yeah, I'll vote for that, because maybe they're in the camp that says, they don't have a problem with biological males competing in girls' sports, which is, in my opinion, crazy. But we're doing it, and people on both sides of the aisle, in some cases, have said, don't seem to have a problem with it. But then also, there's the provision that would prohibit widespread absentee ballots. That would stop the widespread absentee ballots as well at an election. So it's a fight. It's a worthy fight. They need to stay in there and secure our elections. And everyone says they want secure, fair, legal elections. And God willing, that will happen here in America. Just the News, Senate Majority Leader John Thune warning yesterday, Thursday, that the Senate will likely stay in Washington and not take its scheduled spring break if it does not pass legislation to fund the Department of Homeland Security for the rest of the year. DHS entering a shutdown last month after Senate Democrats failed to pass the House's DHS funding bill because of objections to immigration enforcement. And here we are again with talking about the different forms of shutdown and how that just continues to seem to always be the play for certain people. Washington Times reporting top Senate appropriators and centrist dealmakers met with White House border czar Tom Homan yesterday, Thursday, to negotiate an end to the month-long shutdown for DHS. But they left the negotiating session still far from a deal. Senate Appropriations Chair Susan Collins, a Maine Republican, said there was robust discussion in the meeting and some progress, but that a deal remains elusive as Democrats added to the immigration enforcement policy changes that they are seeking. Collins saying, no one wants to see the DHS closed down, but unfortunately the Democrats' list of demands keeps growing, and that makes it difficult. Ms. Collins did not elaborate on the new demands. Democrats' previous demands include dramatically restricting where federal immigration agents can make deportation arrests, requiring judicial warrants to enter private property to arrest unauthorized immigrants, and prohibiting agents from wearing masks. Senator John Kennedy, Louisiana Republican, suggested his GOP colleagues should accept Democrats' offer to fund most of DHS and then use the filibuster-proof budget reconciliation process to provide more funding for U.S. immigration and customs enforcement and customs and border protection, as they did last year. Saying, right now, everybody's just sitting around going to a bunch of meetings, and the Democrats are not going to budge, and they've given no indication that they're going to budge, he said. So why don't we accept reality? Again, that from Senator Kennedy of Louisiana. Democratic South Carolina Representative James Clyburn saying that told Al Sharpton on Sunday earlier this week that his party closed the government to force the defunding of federal immigration enforcement. He said this is an issue about ICE, Clyburn told Sharpton. Not anything to do with TSA, not anything to do with FEMA, nothing to do with the Coast Guard. All of these are wrapped up in this bill that the Republicans are refusing to put on the floor. We will vote for that, but we are not going to fund ICE to continue killing people, to continue masking themselves so no one can identify them. Who was that talking? Democratic South Carolina Representative James Clyburn, again, as he told host of MS Now, Al Sharpton, back on Sunday earlier this week. The Geller Report, CEOs of nation's leading airlines publish an open letter pressing Democrats to open the government. On Friday, our TSA workers got a $0 paycheck from the letter signed by 10 CEOs. There are very few issues upon which 9 out of 10 Americans agree. However, in recent polling, 93% of your constituents across the country supported paying federal aviation workers during government shutdowns. Furthermore, 88% of Americans said long lines and extended wait times at airport security checkpoints are likely to be repeated if TSA officers continue to work without pay during future shutdowns. It's past time for the government to make sure that TSA officers, U.S. Customs clearance officers at airports, and air traffic controllers are paid for the job they do. If we were to open up the phone lines, so we're not going to have time to do that today. If we were to open up the phone lines, though, and just talked about that subject alone, I venture to say nearly every phone call we would get, wherever you are listening in the country, would be in support of getting, well, just as the article said, there are very few issues upon which 9 out of 10 Americans agree. However, in recent polling, 93% of your constituents across the country support paying federal aviation workers during government shutdowns. It has long been said that those in power continue to play their games, and the American people suffer for it. And if certain portions of government and government employees do not get paid during government shutdowns, why aren't all of them not getting paid? That is a question that we hear a lot. Well, why not? It's a sincere question. Because certain ones who have the power to shut the government down, interesting, they don't miss a paycheck. We are coming up on yet another break, and we'll get into one final segment here shortly. You've got to hear how President Trump answered well, just stay with us. He had a classic answer to a reporter talking to them about, well, why didn't you tell more people about this before you went in on Iran? Why? Why did you have to? Why the surprise? His answer is classic. Stay with us.
For the Worldview Report, I'm Brandon House. Our website's worldviewtube.com. We know that America is involved in a spiritual battle. We also know America is involved in a worldview war. We often hear about how countries like Russia, China, Iran are aligned together in an economic war against America with the BRICS banking system. But there's also a penetration of the media, education, and even religious institutions and denominations. One of the people I want to warn you about is a guy by the name of Alexander Dugin. He's often referred to as Putin's brain. He said, quote, "It is especially important to introduce geopolitical disorder into internal American activity," end quote. Is that not what's happening in America today? An internal American disorder? He goes on to talk about the need to highlight extremist, racist, and sectarian groups. There's a worldview war, a spiritual battle, and much of it comes from enemies that are foreign and domestic.
Back for these final minutes of a Friday News Roundup and Comment. Thanks again for joining us. So, of course, we see these press conferences, and I have to say that in my lifetime, I have never saw where an administration is so often in front of the cameras, answering questions, talking to the media, going round and round with the media, but, I mean, always rewind to the Biden administration where we, like, once, maybe twice in 4 years, did we see the president, Biden, at the time in front of the cameras? Once or twice? In an official setting. Where so often more it's been happening in just this last, year and just over a year now. And I appreciate that. And sometimes some of the great moments come out of these. I believe this was on the 19th, published March 19, yesterday, Thursday. And President Trump is asked, Japan and the U.S. are very good friends. But one question, why didn't you tell U.S. allies in Europe and Asia, like Japan, why didn't you tell about the war before attacking Iran? We are very confused about we Japanese citizens. Why didn't you tell us before? And President Trump's response?
Who knows better about surprise than Japan? Okay? Why didn't you tell me about Pearl Harbor? Okay? Right?
So the president went on to say, you don't want to signal too much. When we go in, we went in very hard, and we didn't tell anybody about it because we wanted surprise. Again, who knows better about surprise than Japan? Making that reference to Pearl Harbor. But what a great response to a crazy question. WorldNet Daily, a woman in the street interview. This is stunning. A woman in the street interview, this is on video, we have the audio, was talking to people and has delivered a stunning revelation about Democrats in America, saying they would rather be with, that Democrats in America on the street said this, they would rather be with radical Islamists whose goal is to slit throats and enslave women than have to be with Trump supporters who want to make America great again. And we've got the receipts. Young lady here just simply talking to people, and let's go to clip 5 here.
Who do you have more in common with, a Trump supporter or a radical Islamist?
Radical Islamist.
You saw someone wearing one of those red hats chanting "Make America Great Again," or you saw someone shouting "Allahu Akbar" running down the breezeway here. Who would you feel more safe with?
The one shouting Allahu Akbar. Yeah.
You would support the radical Islamists.
Yeah.
What is it about Trump supporters that you don't think you'd get along with them so well?
I'm gay.
But you would get along with a radical Islamist?
Yes.
And you're gay?
Yes.
In solidarity with radical Islamists, would you look at the camera and say in solidarity, Allahu Akbar?
Allahu Akbar.
And would you say, "Make America Great Again" in solidarity with the Trump supporters?
No.
What is a bigger threat to America today, radical Islam or Trump supporters?
Trump supporters.
I'll say Trump.
Trump supporters in MAGA.
Yeah.
I would say Trump supporters in MAGA.
I would have to go with the Trump supporters.
Trump supporters in MAGA.
Trump supporters in MAGA.
I'd say MAGA. But we should be able to allow people to be who they are.
Yeah. Even if they're a radical Islamist.
Yes. Yeah. There's no right to judge them.
So if someone came running down the street, Allahu Akbar, or if there was someone on the opposite side saying, "Make America Great Again," got my red hat on, which side would you run to?
I don't know.
As Christians, and we're following Christ, do you think it's important to call out radical Islam?
No, because it's a freedom of religion.
Yeah, it's a freedom of religion.
How many terrorist attacks did Trump supporters engage in last week?
So many.
Just guess.
Thousands.
If you're a radical Islamist watching this right now, we pray for your conversion.
It's whatever they want to do, then do it. 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 Whatever.
You know, all I can think about is this fall will be 25 years since 9/11, and how far we've gone now past that, and wow. So we'll hold on to that one, because that's, anyway, just to see the incredible depth of anti-Trump hatred that is being pushed by the left, and saying that radical Islamists are better to, exist with than Make America Great Again supporters. With the time we have left here, Colorado, this is from the Western Journal, Colorado School District kicked female athletes aside 61 times to give boys a chance to compete against girls, according to the U.S. Department of Education, saying Jefferson County Public Schools in Colorado violated Title IX rules by permitting male students to access female bathrooms, locker rooms, and overnight accommodations, and to compete in female sports. By using the standard of gender identity as its guide, the district discriminates against females by denying them safety, dignity, and equal access to educational programs and activities. And as a girl dad, well, I have sons and I have daughters, and you have daughters and granddaughters. You have women that are near and dear to your life, and you want them to be safe in public restrooms and in their school sports, their school restrooms and things, and you wonder why we're going the direction we're going. And friends, to be silent for a fight like this, in my opinion, is terribly, terribly wrong. Already out of time. Friends, there's so much talk about putting boots on the ground in Iran, and that's not happened yet. Friends, let's put some knees on the ground and pray for this nation. God bless you.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Tape Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208. Or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.